Hello, Namaste. I'm Dr. Amit here. Welcome to my YouTube channel at the rate Dr. Amit Official. So today we are going to start our very first lecture from the CBS Cardiovascular System series. So we'll begin with the development of pericardium. By the end of this lecture, you will clearly understand the important concept like lateral plate mesoderm, somatopleuric mesoderm, splanchnopleutic mesoderm, intraembryonic coelom, then pleuropericardial fold, and how the pericardium formed step by step. So let's start our lecture, and don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel at the rate Dr. Amit Official. So let's start our today lecture, development of pericardium. So before starting my lecture, I want to show you some pictures. Okay, so in the embryonic stage, okay, we have ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. This is neural groove. Okay, this is notochord. Okay, and this is lateral plate mesoderm. Okay, we'll talk in detail about this. Okay, remember this picture. Okay, lateral plate mesoderm. Actually, this lateral plate mesoderm splits. Okay, splits into two layer, that is somatopleuric mesoderm, and the second one is splanchnopleutic mesoderm. Okay, so remember this lateral plate mesoderm. That lateral plate mesoderm will split. I've told you that lateral plate mesoderm is split into two layers. That is, one is somatopleuric and one is splanchnopleutic mesoderm. Okay, and between these two layers, okay, we have a coelom. Okay, that is called an intraembryonic coelom. Okay, this is the part. Okay, and this intraembryonic coelom will form the pericardial cavity, the cavity where pericardial fluid exists in our heart. Okay, so remember this picture also. Okay, this two layer, how it forms from splitting that lateral plate mesoderm. Then we will see in the lecture that how these layers, okay, how this pericardial cavity where the pericardial fluid exists, how this fibrous pericardial form, okay, how this parietal layer of serous pericardium form, how this epicardial layer formed, okay, how this endocardium and myocardium form. Okay, we'll talk about how these layers formed in the development of pericardium. That's the same picture like before. Okay, this is a pericardial cavity where the pericardial fluid exists, and if the fluid increases over here, okay, in case of cardiac tamponade, we also correlate clinically. Okay, the outer part, this layer is parietal serous pericardium. This is the inner part, okay, visceral serous pericardium. Okay, now same the serous pericardium, and this is our heart. Okay, so we have the cut sections over here. Okay, how this formed. Okay, so let's start our today lecture. So now let's start our lecture from the beginning. Okay, so in the early embryo, I have shown you the picture that lateral plate mesoderm. Okay, that lateral plate mesoderm actually split and form two layers, that is somatopleuric mesoderm and splanchnopleutic mesoderm. This somatopleuric mesoderm, okay, this somatopleuric mesoderm, this will be near the body wall, and this will be near the organ. Okay, and this is the coelom, intraembryonic coelom, which will form pericardial cavity. Okay, and you can see over here that this is the innermost endocardium, here is myocardium, here is the visceral layer, and between parietal and visceral layer we have the pericardial fluid. Okay, and cardiac tamponade, actually when the fluid increases over here, it will form the pericardium, cardiac tamponade. Okay, so in clinical notes we'll talk about all these things. Okay, so now we'll talk about this one by one. So these all things actually derive from this lateral plate mesoderm. Okay, so near the developing heart we have a thick mesodermal plate called as septum transversum. Okay, so this septum transversum and pleuropericardial fold actually form the fibrous pericardium. Okay, and this fibrous pericardium is the top outer connective tissue layer. Okay, we'll talk about this. Okay, so this septum transversum form what? Fibrous pericardium. And while talking from clinical point of view, remember that the phrenic nerve, okay, the phrenic nerve is embedded in this layer. Okay, this fibrous pericardium. Now the second is somatopleuric mesoderm. The lateral plate mesoderm is split into somato and splanchnic. So somatopleuric mesoderm will form parietal serous pericardium. Okay, this parietal. Okay, this parietal. Okay, so it is sensitive to pain because phrenic nerve is here. So that's why this parietal serous pericardium is sensitive to pain. Now we all know that lateral plate mesoderm is split into somato and splanchnic. This splanchnic will form the visceral part, viscerous serous pericardium, which is also called as epicardium. Okay, so this part will form epicardium. Okay, and this is insensitive to pain. Okay, and this layer is splanchnopleutic mesoderm also form the endocardial cushions and cardiac muscles. Okay, now talking about the intraembryonic coelom. Okay, the intraembryonic coelom is what? That is this cavity. Okay, this cavity this cavity is between these two layers, which is formed from the splitting of lateral plate meridum. Okay, so this cavity form the pericardial cavity. Okay, now we'll talk one by one. Okay, three layers require three distinct mesodermal sources. We all know the mesodermal sources like somatopleuric meridum, splanchnopleutic meridum, and how intraembryonic cilium form, and from where the septum transversum, which is the thick mesodermal plate near the developing heart, right? Now let's talk about the pericardial cavity. Okay, so this cavity formed by split of lateral plate mesoderm. Okay, the lateral plate mesoderm actually is split into two layers, and in between two layers we get a cavity called as pericardial cavity. Okay, now talking about its layer, the somatopleuric is the outer layer. We all know it's the outer part, and splanchnopleutic will be the inner. Okay, that's toward the visceral side. Okay, so this pericardial cavity is formed by split of lateral plate mesoderm, and it has two boundary, outer and inner boundary. Now talking about this fibrous pericardium, which is formed from the septum transversum. Okay, the septum transversum and pleuropericardial fold is forming fibrous pericardium. So this fibrous pericardium is the top outer layer. Okay, outer connective tissue layer, and it has a two origin. Okay, why two origin? One is septum transversum and another one is pleuropericardial fold. Okay, that's why we called it as a two origin. Okay, now talking about the septum transversum. Okay, this septum transversum, that layer, okay, mass of mesoderm lies cranial to the heart. Okay, why cranial to the heart? Okay, while looking at this pic, this is the cranial part. Cranial part means towards the head side. Okay, so this septum transversum is towards the head side. That's why this septum transversum is said that mass of mesoderm lies cranial to the heart. Okay, cranial to the heart. Okay, so that's why we said mass of mesoderm lies cranial toward heart and forms floor of pericardial cavity. Okay, that cavity where pericardial fluid exists. Now the second origin is pleuropericardial membrane. Okay, and this pleuropericardial membrane actually carry the phrenic nerves. Okay, the phrenic nerve, which is because of which that is sensitive to pain. Somatopleuric mesoderm derived layer, that is parietal serous pericardium. So this pleuropericardial membrane actually carry the phrenic nerves. Okay, and injury of this will cause diaphragmatic paralysis, because phrenic nerve also supplies your diaphragm. So if this membrane will get injured by any cause, then there will be diaphragmatic paralysis. Okay, now it separates pericardial cavity from the pleural cavity, because this intraembryonic cilium forms pericardial cavity, then pleural cavity, then peritoneal cavity. All the three main cavities formed from this cilium. Okay, so this pericardial cavity and the pleural cavity gets separated by this pleuropericardial membrane. Okay, and if this pleuropericardial membrane failure to develop, okay, if in anyone, if this pleuropericardial membrane will not develop, then what will happen? Then cardiac displacement or herniation will occur. Okay, so this, okay, this part, this cardiac displacements or herniation will occur. Okay, this is important from clinical point of view. Okay, so now when we'll summarize our today lecture, so I'll just focus on the important part. Okay, we have a lateral plate mesoderm. That lateral plate mesoderm is split into two parts, one called as somatopleuric mesoderm, one called as splanchnopleutic mesoderm. Between two we have a cilium called as intraembryonic cilium. Okay, this septum transversum and pleuropericardial form fibrous pericardium outer part. This will form the parietal pericardium, this will form the visceral pericardium, and this will form the pericardial cavity. Okay, now we all know about the cavity, then fibrous pericardium and septum transversum. Okay, and the clinical significance. Okay, so this is all about the development of pericardium. Okay, so if you like this video, please share with your friends. We'll meet in next lecture from the cardiovascular series. Till then, work hard, and thank you for watching.